Alright, I don't know if anybody can hear this, because this is my first time setting this up on a new computer, so my old setup is just... Well, I had to update, so I'm not sure, I haven't really tested this microphone, so... Yeah, sure. So recently I saw episode 3 of The Acolyte. And this was after, according to Forbes, it was registered as one of the most disappointing Star Wars episodes ever made. This is by Eric Kane. Hold on, let me just post this ad right here. And yeah, I decided to take a look at it. Wow. Let me put this into a perspective new viewers can understand. Think of everything you know from the original series, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, when you said that, what he said about the Force. Now, according to Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Force is the source of a Force user's power, of course. It is an energy field that flows through all living things. It binds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together. That's what he said. And it was further explained that it uses midichlorians to be able to connect to the Force. The higher the midichlorian count, the more powerful a Jedi or a Sith can be. And it also takes skill and great discipline to be able to master both aspects of the Force, both the dark side and the light. And the Acolyte just completely and utterly shattered that perspective. Now, yes, we can be able to understand that this is an unheard of Force-using organization, these witches. I'm not sure if they're trying to copy the Night Sisters of Dathomir, or are they their own coven, or anything like that. But yeah, we do understand that different people who use the Force can view the Force differently. Like, for example, even the Jedi originally viewed it as the Ashlar, based on the two moons, the Ashlar and Bogan, I believe, yes. But the way it is explained in the Acolyte, it's terrible. I have to say it, it's terrible. I don't care if anybody tries to insult me or anything. It's terrible. It is viewed as this thread that, instead of completely shaping your destiny, you are the one who controls it. And the Coven believe that, well, since they use it in this way, the galaxy isn't accepting for people like them. Well, that is incredibly true, since I believe using it in this way is a path to the dark side, isn't it? Since the earliest Jedi, before, if my memory serves me correct about Star Wars lore, before the Great Schism, this was known as Force alchemy, in which they tampered with the Force in order to create life. And they used it to create gigantic abominations. I think you fight some of these things in KOTOR and the Old Republic, and I believe also in some later games during that time period. And yeah, it just shatters it. So they use this power to, according to the Acolyte, create the twins without a father. They molded this woman, the head witch of the Coven. She used the Force, or she tampered with the Force, in order to get one of the willing members of the Coven pregnant. That's producing twins, the main characters of the Acolyte, May and Osha. I can never get those two right, because they have the same hairstyle and stuff, so it's kind of confusing now. So yeah, they completely shattered that. And the Jedi, well, obviously they sensed that these children of Force users, they are coming in to be able to adopt them. And the way it's set up is that the witches don't want the children to live. Understandable. But they cannot deny that, well, the Jedi have to take the children, even though now there are two problems with this. Number one, the children are old, so the Jedi, when they come in, logically, when they see that they're old, they know that they cannot be able to teach them anymore, since they already have an emotional attachment to the witches. So option A is to live calmly, but they don't do that. Option B is in the bad writing category is that the way they are taught the Force, right? They already have massive amount of training, and so these witches know the Republic law. Force-sensitive children should be taken by the Jedi. If Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie hadn't ignored the first option, logically this should be the second option, that they would give the children willingly because, of course, it is dictated by law, and the Jedi are the best option to train them. But of course, the witches don't do that. And what results is that Leslie didn't try to picture the Jedi as the bad guys of the story. And yet, after this entire scene, watching this entire episode, you just leave yourself wondering, how were the Jedi the bad guys in this episode? Because it makes no sense. It is May, of course, who starts the fire, which engulfs the entire village, thus killing everyone, supposedly. Because she wanted to stop Osha from becoming a Jedi. She views the Jedi as, here in the dialogue, the Jedi are bad. This is literally taken from the show, right here. The Jedi are bad. And wow, it's quite something. Now we've covered the law aspects of it and how I feel about it. Well, not exactly how I feel about it. I'll cover that later. Now let's talk from a literal standpoint. Now, I am a person who kind of understands literature. From a technical standpoint, I haven't written anything, but I kind of understand it since I know about poems and I know about Shakespeare, since like Othello and Macbeth, and I know how to handle plays and screenplays well. It's not set up correctly. Alright. Episode 1 and 2, they were average at best. I wouldn't say they're the best of Star Wars. Of course not. And then again, I wouldn't say they're the worst. They're just right there in the middle, maybe 45-50% out of 100. That's what I would give them. Episode 3, on the other hand, it's written terribly. That even if let's just forget this was Star Wars. Let's just say this was, for example, not Lord of the Rings, but like a new IP entirely. And with this writing, it's not good writing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to stay calm and take this from a literal standpoint, but honestly, it's not a good piece of literature. It's written in such a way that they might want you to be quick, and it seems as though they don't even know what they're doing. They just wrote it and thought, oh, this is good, we're just going to edit in there. And this concept of there being two mothers, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But it seems like in this IP, it's out of place. Like, if this was a story about Mass Effect, and these witches were Asari, then we could be able to understand and say, oh, yeah, makes sense. I mean, we've known this for years in the entire Mass Effect lore. But in Star Wars, it doesn't make sense. Like, for example, Shmi Skywalker having a pregnancy by itself, right? Without there being a father, and that was the entire mystery of Star Wars. Who manipulated the Force in order to get Shmi pregnant? That's resulting in this prophecy of the Chosen One. Some speculate that it was the Force itself, which means it's a living, sentient thing. That's why there are two parts of the Force, the Universal Force and the Living Force. While others managed to say that it might have been Darth Plagueis or Darth Sidious who were able to tamper with the Force for it to do their bidding. But all in all, it contradicts everything within the Star Wars lore, and from a literature standpoint, it is not a good show, in my honest opinion. Now, let's see what Forbes has to say. This is Forbes. The Acolyte, Episode 3 review, one of the most disappointing Star Wars episodes ever made. Right? The third episode of Disney's The Acolyte is an embarrassment to the entire franchise, though the same could be said for much Star Wars these days outside of Andor and the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. Here's one exchange between the two characters in this latest episode. May says the Jedi are bad, while Osha says the Jedi are good. Later, the same two characters, the twin protagonist and antagonist of the story, as children in this flashback episode, say to one another, "What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?" Which implies that they are arguing. I want to ask Disney the same question. What have you done? This entire episode is a bad joke. We learn that May and Osha lived with their mothers in a society of witches, all of whom are female. It appears they were conceived using the Force, or something. Force-using witches are also apparently frowned upon in this galaxy. Again, this is false. I mean, the Night Sisters of Dathomir have literally been in the galaxy for centuries. In fact, Cal Kestis in the EA Jedi games, he is working with a Night Sister, is he not? Yeah, correct. They call the Force the thread. I'm getting dark side vibes here, although I'm also getting the sense that this show will try to be all edgy and make the Jedi out to be the bad guys, which we've seen play out about half a dozen times at this point. Osha and May fight with one another constantly and are very, very irritating throughout the episode. Osha wants to leave her people and May wants to stay. When the Jedi show up and ask to test the girls for their Force powers, they agree to fake not having any. But Jedi Master Saul convinces Osha not to lie, and she says she wants to be a Jedi and live with them, against her mother's wishes. May is upset and threatens to kill her sister, locking her in their chambers and burning the entire witch village to the ground, apparently killing everyone. It seems clear that there's more to the story, that somehow the four Jedi, Indara, King Tomen, Wookiee Jedi, and Saul are somehow complicit. Saul saves Osha and they escape. May appears to fall to her death, but we know better since this is the third episode. What a disaster. Now this is the scattered thoughts. IGN says this episode offers up a lot of tantalizing new layers to how we perceive both the Jedi and the Force, and I would like to know if we use different versions of the word tantalizing. I'm confused about the entire motivation of May, who wants revenge on the Jedi but is actually the one responsible for killing everybody, if that is, anyone is actually dead. After all, both twins thought the other one was dead. It seems likely none of the witches died at all. Exactly, which is confusing, even for me. In fact, I do believe that this Sith Lord that is being made into this entire mysterious figure might be one of the witches. We'll see once we get on, if I can be able to survive through the show, that is. Even when she didn't burn everyone to death, she certainly started a fire that she certainly must believe killed Osha at the very least. Alright? The Jedi in episode 2 killed himself over this, it seems. If there's not more to the story, this will make absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, there should be more to the story. The witch chant was one of the lamest chants in history of all chants. I wanted to giggle maniacally listening to it. I also wanted to cry. Oh, you're a better man or woman than me. I was cringing through the entire thing. I mean, who was the person who authorized that soundtrack? It was appalling. Let's continue. The Night Sisters are better witches. Merrin from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor is a better female witch character than anyone on this show. Exactly, I've just said this. This show had something like $108 million for its budget, and I cannot for the life of me tell where any of this has gone. Every world feels small, every set feels claustrophobic, there's no sense of scale or variety, it's all so relentlessly generic. But hey, lightsabers. Now, I've also seen this, and some calculations indicate that for this to be costing $108 million for the entire show, which is 8 episodes, that means for one episode, approximately, costs $22 million to create. Meaning that basically, it's one of the most expensive shows I've ever heard of. To put it into context, in 2011, an indie film called District 9 was nominated for the Oscars. This was a sci-fi film which was filmed in South Africa. It had quite good storytelling and character development, and it was quite a different take from like alien films. While most aliens films take place in America, this took place in South Africa, so this was quite a different take, and I praised it for that. The entire movie costs about $30 million. And it is so far, compared to The Acolyte, it has better CGI and better concepts and better sets overall. So, which makes me wonder, how did an indie film from 2011, mind you, which costs about way less, I'm not even going into percentages here, like way less than The Acolyte, how is it better? Honestly, how is it better? Anyway, let's continue. We're watching The Escape with Saul and Osha. This room with the pile of bodies is clearly not from a fire. So yeah, there's more to this. But that doesn't change how ludicrous the whole I'll kill you bit is, and how May very much tried to burn her sister to death. Of course, it would also be bad production design, in which case maybe they did die from a fire or smoke. Now, judging by what this looks like, right, and what So said, he specifically said they started a fire and it killed everyone. Right? Maybe the Jedi were present and they started the fire, and the Jedi believed or perceived that they are trying to escape with the children. And so, when they came to investigate, the women possibly attacked, or maybe the Jedi attacked first and then they killed the women, which would cause, what was it again? May to believe that the Jedi are evil, when instead she was the one who started the fire and caused the entire thing. But then she would go into the defense and say that none of this would have happened if the Jedi didn't show up. Again, I believe it's going to be a convoluted mess, but we'll see how it goes, Mrs. Headland. We'll see how it goes. Regardless, what a weird way to end the episode. The girls fight, the fire spreads throughout what appears to be a stone cave, and then suddenly they're passing all these bodies. We didn't hear any commotion or screaming or battle. It's more confusing than intriguing. Also, what is up with the tree? Honestly, I had forgotten about the bloody tree. Someone has captured the chant footage. It was put in an actual TV show was supposed to take seriously. Tonight, this is from a guy called Jacob. This is from Twitter, or X as it now called. Tonight's episode of The Acolyte is honestly great. Such a unique Star Wars story. Feels so unique, yet also reminiscent of The Phantom Menace in so many ways. Really amazing foreshadowing as to what to come, not just in this story, but years later as well. Loved it. I've seen The Phantom Menace. This is not The Phantom Menace. If anything, this is on par with Attack of the Clones, and honestly, Attack of the Clones kind of had better dialogue and better world building and better storytelling than this entire episode, and that is a low bar, a really low bar. And Eli only responded, looks amazing. So this is what
the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
This looks like something which would take place on a child's production of Macbeth. Not a high school production, no, a child production of Macbeth. Rather than a $180 million Star Wars show. I have no words. I do have a theory, however. Imposters have taken over Star Wars and lots of other popular genre properties, from The Witcher to True Detective. Maybe they're fans, maybe they're not, but they're certainly masquerading as good storytellers, and they think they know best, making whatever changes they see fit to make their own. As Game of Thrones author George R. Martin wrote recently, everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them their own. It does not seem to matter whether the source material was written by Stan Lee, Charles Dickens, Ian Fleming, Roald Dahl, Ursula K. Le Guin, J.R.R. Tolkien, Mark Twain, Raymond Chandler, Jane Austen, or, well, anyone. No matter how major a writer it is, no matter how great the book, there always seems to be someone on hand who thinks he can do better, eager to take this story and improve on it. The book is the book, the film is the film, they will tell you. And if they're saying something profound, then they make the story their own. They never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. Amen, brother. I'd say that Star Wars deserves a better steward, but George Lucas didn't do a very good job of that himself in the later years. In fact, the Acolyte keeps reminding me of the prequel trilogy in all the worst ways. Ah well, what a shame. I'll keep watching, obviously, and I really do hope it gets better. In fact, next week's episode, which is too short and is an annoying cliffhanger ending, is leaps and bounds better than this one. So that's something to look forward to. Silver linings and all that jazz. So this is a person who also made a review. I think this is what he wrote. Your thoughts, let me know on Twitter and Facebook. Right. So this is by Eric Kane, and he is incredibly spot on. I mean, this is terrible. Alright, so yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and that's what all I want to say. I mean, I am appalled by this, immensely appalled.